Meantime, let's go through some announcements, some of the things that we've got going on. Can everyone hear me okay? Do I need to, we've got microphones in here, but if you guys can hear okay, we can just skip that. Yeah. All right, so what we've got coming up, tonight is our town hall. We've got obviously, another town hall without our Congressman Jason Lewis again. He just does not want to show up. We write letters to him, we email, we show up at his office, we tweet at him. There's just really no end to the ways we've been trying to contact him. And yet he still continues to vote as though we don't exist. Take for example the tax reform plan. I think most statistics have about 1 in 4 people supporting that, and yet he kept supported the bill despite folks in his district. So we have to hold these town halls so that we can learn how to become better activists, and that's what we're doing here tonight, and what IREB has been doing for the last year. And so to talk a little bit about IREB, most of you folks are pretty familiar. There's a few new faces in here. We apologize for the late notice on the invite with this, with all that's been going on in Washington over the last few weeks. We had to reschedule this once, and then just found out yesterday that we were going to be able to have it today. So things, was kind of short notice, but we did want to pass an opportunity to talk with Keith. And so first of all, we'll talk a little bit about IREB. So IREB formed about a year ago in the wake of the election, right? Right after Trump was elected, a number of us got together and said, what are we going to do about this? We weren't happy. We obviously knew something bad was coming. So, we took a look and we formed this group up. We put an ad in the paper, and a handful of folks, most of them are here tonight, showed up at our first meeting at the Bonnie's in Egan. And since then, we've held, a bunch of town halls. We've been to Jason's office a number of times. Our main point, our main focus of work that we do is to oppose the Trump agenda. We see what's going on in Washington is not just being, just Republicans, and we're going to vote them off. There's something else going on here, and I'd like to rely on Joe Biden. He came out not too long ago. We had a fundraiser here. They have it every year. It's called the Founders Day. Some of you were there. That dinner, I was excited to go see it because I'm Chicken Little skies falling here in Egan. Wondering, trying to save the world for democracy and all that. And, I could just be a nut job. I could just be this kind of unhinged person here in my little corner of the world. And so I was excited to hear what Joe had to say. And I listened to him while he came in. It was honestly one of the bleakest talks I've ever heard. I don't know if any of you guys were there, but he said it himself too. He'd never seen anything like this before, So that's what we're up against. And so that we take this stuff pretty seriously. We have a little fun with it, try to keep our sense of humor about it, but we take this seriously. Jason Lewis has to go. He hasn't listened to a thing in a year. It's been a year, and he has done nothing to help anyone. So what we've been doing is just whatever we can. We thought we knew what we were going to be a year ago in the business. We thought we knew what we were going to become. We started writing mission statements and vision statements, and we've thrown those all out several times because we've had to reinvent ourselves so many times over the course of the last year. We didn't know what we were going to be up against. These guys are tough. We go up against them and we say, don't vote for this, and they vote for it, and then they lie to us in the media. We're up against some real hardcore stuff. So we're constantly looking for ways to get people engaged, to get you guys engaged, to get you guys standing up for yourselves. I don't want to tell you who to vote for, whether or not you should be a Bernie or a Hillary or whatever. That's not our job. Our job is to get you guys standing up as activists, to get involved in the process and say what you think, because that's when we're going to be better off. I learned this last year in our caucus. It was my first caucus I ever attended. I got to sit in that room and watch a guy get voted out for being precinct chair just because he shouldn't have been. And that's what happens when people come together and we get into a room. We lift people up that should be getting lifted up, and we keep people from taking charge that really have no business taking charge. And so some of the things that we learned about, we're learning where to go to caucus, how to show up for caucus, how to write resolutions. And I'm going to have Marcus come up and talk about that in a minute. We're learning how to engage our elected representatives through writing to them and through having civil conversations. We formed like we were going to be a part of it. We were in the image of the Tea Party, right? The Tea Party took Sal Alinsky's book about becoming a real hardcore liberal, and they turned it on its ear, and they became a bunch of ranting raving lunatics. You know, they would yell down our elected representatives and get nothing done. We took that idea and decided that because we're smarter, we're going to not waste any of that time. So when we have a chance to talk to our elected representatives, like hopefully we will tonight, we will take that time to learn and to engage and to help build our process, our democratic process. So what we've got going on tonight is the town hall. Tomorrow night, we're going to be writing resolutions. I'm going to have Marcus say a few words about that in a second. And then, you know, we've got caucuses coming up. What else have we got going on? We've got
there's a caucus training on January. Well, we're not doing that, but there is a caucus training on January.
Yeah, we're supporting caucus training. And then let's talk a little bit about what you've got going on over the table there to get people connected up to their precincts.
So this is for anybody who is interested in going to the EFL caucus, which is where a lot of change is going to start this year. It's where you will put forward your vote for like your local representatives, and then also put forward resolutions that you carry forward in the process, which Marcus is going to talk about. So, and a lot of people aren't, like if I say precinct or Senate district, I didn't even know what those words meant like a year ago. So if you're in that same boat, you can come over here and I can tell you what it means and where you need to go. And the caucuses are on Tuesday, February 6th.
And everybody in this room is going to go to the caucus or volunteer to become a delegate or run for precinct chair, or you just volunteer to help when you're there, right? Because that's what we need to do. We need to all be participating in this and to throw our best effort into it. Marcus is going to talk a little bit about resolution right now.
Very quick. So tomorrow night is the workshop for resolutions. For those of you who don't know what a resolution is, it is your idea on how to change the Democratic Party. The Republicans do the same thing the same night. So if you have ideas of the direction that you want to push your party, this is exactly the moment where you need to step forward and voice your opinion. And tomorrow night we're going to tell you the process, how it works, and then we're going to do some resolutions ourselves. So if you're interested, come on over in, what is it called, Rasmussen College in Egan at 6:30. We will teach you how to do it, and I hope we'll have many people.
Thanks, Marcus. Yep, so resolution ready tomorrow, so show up at Rasmussen 6:30, and we'll get started on that. So without adding any further, well, first I want to recognize we've got some elected officials in the room, right? One that we're going to be introducing in a moment. We've got Senator Erik Paulsen here tonight. He's our senator. And I don't think we have any other elected folks. I do have Renita was here. She's running for office. Oh, there you are. So tonight's town hall is basically going to be a very intimate affair hosted by our congressman from the 5th Congressional District. And before we get started, I just wanted to give you a little bit of rundown of what our congressman, who was invited to this, has been invited to every single town hall that we've held in CD2 and has refused to show up to every single one. Some of the things that he's been up to over the course of the last year. You know, I took a look at his voting record, and one of the things I think a lot of the folks that have been following Congressman Lewis is that he's maintained between 92 and 97% Trump support rating, which means that he votes in favor of the president's policies today 92% of the time. To give you an example of how that worked out, he first voted on January 5th after he got elected. It was a little over a year and a couple of weeks ago, and he stayed at 100% Trump support rating for 4 months before he voted anything against him. He voted one bill against Trump, and then he went for another 3 months without voting against Trump. So taking a look at some of the accomplishments, some of the things that our congressman has voted for, and we'll see, you know, these are things that we wanted. I actually did a little cherry picking on this. We'll go chronologically. His second vote was to repeal ACA. His fourth vote was to ban federal funding for abortion. He voted for the Department of Defense budget, one of the largest in history, you know, $700 billion. I don't know if we could do something with that money otherwise. He did vote for repealing net neutrality. Actually, I wanted to have a question. Was there anybody in here that called him, because we call him all the time, right? We call him at some, did anybody in here say, please repeal net neutrality? One? Okay, we have a tracker. He voted to increase penalties on undocumented aliens. He voted to delay implementation of ozone standards. He supported disaster relief for Texas, but not for Puerto Rico. And one of my favorites is he voted for that reciprocity agreement, where the worst or the lowest common denominator can now carry weapons in Minnesota. And then, of course, the tax reform scam. So these are the kind of work that our congressman is doing, and so we'd like to have some time with him to ask him some questions about that, but unfortunately, he never seems to find time to show up. However, we did have one congressman that would be willing to show up, and we are so grateful for him, Keith Ellison from Minnesota's 5th Congressional District.
Good. It's good to see you guys. I brought up a notepad because I want to spend most of the time listening to you, answering your questions, and you don't mind if Jason holds my jacket?
He's not working.
But just sort of like talk about it. On the way in, I believe somebody said, we have a light crowd. Let me tell y'all, we ain't got no light crowd. We got the right people in the room. I say that to you because I've been, doing this politics stuff for a minute. And I've been at meetings where we had like 5,000 people in the room. And guess how much we got done? Not much. We cheered and we clapped, but we didn't get anything actually done. And I've been to meet with 3 people in the room, more than we ever move out and get some things done. So don't ever judge the effectiveness of a meeting by the number of people that are there. I mean, we got the right folks tonight, and I feel honored to be with you. And I say thank you for coming out tonight, because it's a little breezy out there, and I'm sure everybody here would rather be curled up in front of, whatever they're doing. So you've made a sacrifice to be here. And so for me to be here it's an honor, and I say that to you sincerely. So look, let's just talk a little bit about the big picture, then we'll go to the granular picture. Big picture-wise is this. The Republican Party got taken over by a highly motivated group of movement activists who believe that there shouldn't be any publicly owned property, that everything should be privately owned, including our parks and our land, who believe that the only legitimate expenditure is military and the police, and who believe that everything else ought to be metered off in one way or another. They think if you're not rich, it's because you're not enterprising or smart or whatever. And if you're just a working person, you're supposed to be happy just to have a job, and demanding that you get some fairness and decency and good treatment is asking too much. They believe that, things like, helping people when they're running through hard times is not a good expense. They don't think that rich people need to buck up and work hard, but they do think that working people who fall into hard times need a boot in the backside in order to work. So they want to drug test people for Medicare, Medicaid. They want to drug test people who need a little help getting by. But if you're rich getting big fat subsidies for not doing anything, that's okay, because you deserve it. And how do we know you deserve it? Because you're rich. Well, and I want to say that not all rich people agree with this. One of the funny things I've run into in the last few years is how many rich people will say, I'm so lucky to be in a country that allows me to be able to come up with a great idea, market that idea, and then do well. And I have done well. But I think with doing well and having the privilege of opening my business in the United States means that I should pay some taxes so that the kids can go to school, that the water can be clean, that we can have some kind of regulations about work site safety, that we can try to figure out what to do about Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and all that other kind of stuff. So the thing, I've really been amazed at how, and some of the rich people I've encountered about how they'll say, hey, I'll pay higher taxes if that means a better society, roads that we can drive on. Speaking of roads, you know, we really are driving on Eisenhower era infrastructure. You know, when the oldest one in this room was a child, people a generation ahead of that person were thinking about the roads that that person would be riding on as an adult. Our generation needs to understand that we've got to make those same kind of investments for the children being born now. We have a certain responsibility. You know, there's a funny thing out in the Middle East, they got these olive plants. And these trees, when you plant them, they may never bear fruit for 20 years. But they're not planted for the current generation. They're planted for the next generation. We've got to be those kind of people, and that's really the kind of people that we are. We just have leadership in place now that just doesn't see it that way. They're like, I want to get all as much as I can for me now. And that's the mentality of the people who are running the place. And yet we've got to be different. Here's the thing, and Senator Carlson knows this better than anyone, because here's the interesting thing that you should know. Everything I can tell you about the Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives is true with the State House. Am I right about that? They've got this movement, it's national in scope, and they're highly motivated. The Republican Party that your parents knew isn't there anymore. Did you know that in 1965, every member of the Minnesota delegation voted for the Voting Rights Act? All of them did. Republican and Democrat. Nowadays, there are Republicans who would vote yes if they could get a vote, but we can't get a vote. There are Republicans who vote yes on an immigration bill, but we can't get a vote because the speaker won't give us a vote. So that's kind of setting the large picture. What does this have to do with where we are now? Now, if I was you, I'd say, I want to know, Keith, what's going on with the shutdown? How can we have a shutdown? In order to understand the shutdown, it is critically important to understand, and I mean this sincerely, that it wasn't just about the DREAM Act. So every year we're supposed to pass a budget appropriations bill. And you should know this about an appropriation bill. It's for the year. If you are the majority party, you're supposed to pass the bill. It's your job. It's what it means to be in the majority. They didn't pass an appropriations bill, so they passed a patch-up bill, also known as a continuing resolution. Okay, so you couldn't get your homework done on time.
Got an extension.
We'll give you an extension. And then another extension. They say 3 strikes is you're out. Well, they must be out because they're on number 4. We're literally paying for government expenses 1 month or 6 weeks at a time. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And because and when we pass a continuing resolution, you can play with it here and there, but mostly it's just continue current funding levels from last year. That's what it is. So if inflation is 2%, and we're just going to continue what we spent last year into this year, what just happened this year? You have a 2% cut. So they're literally cutting the budget by continuing resolution. And then they're not paying for things that come up, like disaster relief. The good people of Minnesota know that, yeah, we're going to help the folks out in Puerto Rico and in Texas because we know that when the Red River Valley swells, we want them helping us, right? Or when tornadoes rip through our towns, and one ripped through my neighborhood in Minneapolis a few years ago, we want folks helping us. So we don't say that your disaster, good luck with that. You know? No, we step up. We're all countrymen and women of each other. We help out, except they say no. Or they say we will later, maybe we'll get to it. And the treatment of Puerto Rico was if it's not a part of the United States. It is a part of the United States. You don't need a passport to go to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is are as American as anyone in this room. Their children serve in the United States military. But we're treating them like they're a foreign country, which is really, really bad. That's why, there's this debate. Should they become a state? Should they become their own country? They're kind of in between. But the people of Puerto Rico are U.S. citizens right now. And they can move here, they can leave San Juan, be here, and do everything anyone else can do here. They're quite a bit different than somebody who crossed the border without proper papers. Quite a bit. Just because they speak the same language as some of those folks doesn't mean that their legal status is the same. On the issue of other issues that are failing in the CR, we have not funded something called community health centers. Now you might think, well, Key, they did fund the Children's Health Insurance Program. True. Trust me, they didn't want to. They haven't done it. They failed to do it. It's been unauthorized for several months. But what they did is they just said, we know you Democrats got a soft heart for kids going to the doctor when they need to go, so we'll put this in this bill, and now we dare you to vote against it. That's what they do. So they think we're all just going to fall down because you throw you out this little thing, so you're going to go for it. So we said, wait a minute. Giving CHIP money without giving community health centers is saying, we'll pay for it, but there's nowhere for you to go. You understand? Mm-hmm. It's like 25%, some huge number. Isn't it like 25% of all Americans go to a community health center to get their primary care? So we haven't funded that. They're running out of money, even right here in Minnesota. So they failed to fund community health centers. And so they failed on multiple fronts. There's a long list of things that were not funded in this bill. Mattis, who is the Secretary of Defense, no bleeding heart liberal by any stretch of the imagination, says you are killing the military. Unpredictability in funding is hurting the military. Stop. What we're saying is, let's pass appropriation bills, but what they want to do is say, we'll fully fund the military, but we won't fund domestic spending. Okay, so you're gonna fund the active duty military, but you're not gonna help that soldier's mother out when she needs to go to fund when she needs to go to the doctor, or when she needs to get healthcare research, or when she needs Meals on Wheels. Right? We're not funding none of that stuff. So they act like soldiers are some world apart from everyone else. No, they're part of us. And if you fund the military but don't fund domestic programs, you've just hurt the soldier's family. That's what you've just done. How are they supposed to think about defecting the country when you're cutting Alzheimer's research for that soldier's father? So it doesn't make sense what they're doing, in my opinion. But you might think, oh, it doesn't make sense, that must mean they're dumb. No, 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 no. If that's what you think, that is not right. They're not dumb. They're ideological. Because they know that they cannot just get up there and say, we're not funding none of this domestic stuff, we're going to cut it to the bone. They know you're going to be mad about it. So what do? They just nickel and dime you. Cut it down over time through continuing resolutions and stuff like that. Because they want to shrink government to the size where you can jog in the bathtub. Heard that phrase before? So that is what's happening. Okay, so now you say, okay, what about DACA? So DACA comes into this, the president said all kind of mean things about immigrants for years. We know that. The DACA program is going along fine. By the way, you cannot be a deferred action on childhood arrivals unless you have a background check and don't have any prior criminal convictions, unless they're like very minor misdemeanors, and you can't have too many. You got to be in school or the military or something. You got kids who didn't get into DACA because they didn't have a GED yet. You got it. So everybody who's a DACA, and it's about 800,000 of them, are kids who you would not mind your kids associating with. And probably some of your kids do associate with them. And yet they're being told, well, they have a legal status. These kids have a status. But they're being told, you now are not going to have a status. Now, Republicans keep saying, what are Democrats making such a big deal about? We have till March 6th until the program is completely eliminated. This is extremely misleading because people are losing status every day. They're staggered in terms of their timing. There's about 16,000 who are out of status now who had status before. So we don't have all day to solve this problem. It's creating urgencies now. And you might say, well, the government's not going to put them out right away. Well, they have put out some DACA people. But here's the thing, once you go out of status, you lose your work permit. Now, when DACA was passed a few years ago, that was one thing. Now, a lot of those kids are older. Some of them are practicing physicians. Some of them are teachers. Some of them are nurses. They're doing very serious jobs that our society relies on. And by the way, all of them were too young to object when they came to the United States. You know? So my point is simply that to cut them off that way with no plan in place, with no bill, is just wrong, and it's immoral, and it's hurting all of us. And trust me, you probably have some of them that are doing something important in your neighborhood, your house, your life, your company. So we say, look, you cannot, you gotta, so first of all, when they ripped the program on September 5th, we say, okay, well, you gotta do something by October. They do nothing. Well, then you gotta do something by December. Nothing. So we finally said, look, we're not voting for the CR because of all the things I've already said about how it hurts the government, how it grinds down on programs, how it's not funding disaster relief. You already are doing that. But on top of that, you're messing over these DACA kids. We're not voting for it unless you give us at least a vote. We're not even asking you to promise to pass the vote, but we've got to have a vote. By the way, there's a lot of Republicans who would vote yes. Keep your eye on Erik Paulsen. You say you vote for it. I don't know about Jason, but I think you find I wouldn't even be too shocked if they would vote for it. But my point is that there's a lot of folks who would vote for an immigration bill if they had a chance. In the U.S. House of Representatives, the only person who has the power to put a vote on the floor is the Speaker. And if the Speaker won't do it, it's not coming out. Now, there is one other little provision called a discharge petition. And that means if you get a numerical majority, the Speaker can't stop the vote. Now, here's the thing about that. We're in the minority. We got about 200 members who are in the Democratic caucus. In order to get to 218, we're going to have 18 Republicans cross over and sign a discharge petition. It's only happened one time since I've been in Congress, and that was on the Import-Export Act. Every other time, Republicans are like, I think you guys are right, but I'm not putting my head on that chopping block. If I put my name on that thing, I've just pretty much declared myself outside of my own caucus, and that's not a good way to become. That's not a good way to win friends and influence people, because unlike the Democratic caucus, when you break from the herd, they punish. They do. They're not like us. Oh, no problem. We understand. They're like, no, we don't understand anything. We're going to take your chairpersonship away. We're going to run people against you in the primary. Jimmy, remember that time? Some of those, what was it over immigrant transportation issue? The they punish their people, didn't they? Yep. Yeah, so we're not really like that. Some people think we ought to be, but they're a little more hardcore than we are, and they use it to our advantage that we're so humane. Our disadvantage that that's true. So in the House, it's a majority rule system, so we all voted against the CR because of the reasons I've already shared with you. But it didn't matter because it's a majority rule system. In the Senate, they got to meet a 60-vote threshold in order to pass stuff. They know that. They know that. It's not unknown to them. And they know that we weren't voting for it unless we got some things we had to have. And they still put it up for a vote. And without conceding anything to us. I'm like, if you need me, and you need my vote to pass it, they come talk to me. They're like, no, we're not gonna talk to you. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put the vote up, and if you don't vote for it, we're gonna blame you for the shutdown. That's like saying, I'm not gonna give you anything to do what I want you to do, except I won't knock you in the nose and you know what I mean? They're saying that I won't inflict pain and damage on you if you come along with me. In some places that's known as blackmail, extortion, hostage taking. We're not doing that. You're not getting my vote because the only thing you're gonna offer me is not getting up on Fox News and blaming me for the shutdown. If that's all I get is you not blaming me, why should you ever give me anything? If you can get what you want out of me through threats, intimidation, and negative propaganda about what I'm doing. You understand what I'm saying? And my thought is, wait a minute, last time I heard you at the presidency of both chambers in Congress, why in the world can't you pass an appropriations bill? Why can't you run your business? Let me tell you, we never had these problems. When I was in the majority in 2006, 2008, I was in the majority for 4 years, 2006 to end of 2010, we passed affordable health care, we passed Wall Street reform. I mean, we passed a long list of stuff. I mean, a long list, and we didn't have these problems. We understood that when you got both houses of Congress and the presidency, there is a responsibility to govern. But we believe in the concept of government and representative democracy, and I think with them, it's doubtful. So, that's what we got. So, I'll tell you like this, the president had a press conference a few weeks ago in which he was trying to, after everybody was questioning his sanity, you know, he decides to have this TV show where he's showing himself being presidential. And in that presidential display, you saw him say, oh, well, whatever these smart people come up with, I'll sign it because I trust these smart people. Am I the only one who saw that? You saw it too? I got a witness. You saw it? You saw it? And you take the heat because he's used to taking heat. And then y'all saw Dianne Feinstein say, what about a clean DACA vote? And then we get into the back and forth of the immigration bill. He says, good idea.
Yes, he did.
Kevin McCarthy then says, oh no, Grandpa. That's not what we're talking about here. So until he had to figure out what his opinion was, he needed someone to tell him what it was. So anyway, he ends that meeting looking all normal and presidential and open-minded and reasonable. All of this was propaganda. So then Lindsey Graham and Dick Durbin, senator from Illinois, they get together and they try to figure out a bill. They do figure out a bill. And they say, Mr. President, here's the thing you said you wanted. He says, nope. Not without my wall money, not without this, not without this, not without this, not without that. So I thought you said you signed everything we gave you. I thought, no, that was then. That was now. Oh, by the way, when he rejected the bill, he didn't do that on TV. Did you notice that? So, in other words, we have a really bizarre situation with this president. So, there were some people who said it was a sellout when Schumer, let some of his members off to vote for the bill. You should understand that not everywhere is Minnesota. And in some places it's going to be a battle. Some of those folks calculate their win possibilities differently than we might hear. Personally, I don't calculate win possibilities when I vote. I calculate what I believe my constituents and my conscience want me to do. So, they decided that they were going to supply the votes. My message to everybody is, if you wanted us to hold out for till we got a DACA vote, don't be too upset because look, February 8th is coming up quick. Well, we'll see. Good question.
Yeah.
Good question. But if I could tell you what was going to happen, I'd win some money. So I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen. But I can lay out a scenario for you. And here's what I think is going to happen. So people might say they didn't get anything, we didn't get anything. I don't know if I agree with that. So we didn't give up, we didn't lose anything. We did not foreclose the possibility of getting the immigration vote that we're looking for. That is still live. McConnell got up and made a promise to do it, to have that vote. He didn't say he'd pass it, but he said that vote would occur. We didn't have that before, now we do. They wouldn't say anything before. Now, will he lie? It's possible because he lied to Jeff Flake. Jeff Flake said, I will vote for the tax bill if you allow this vote. He said, okay, then didn't do it. So he's shaky, okay? But what I'm telling you is in politics, as in life, it's all about holding people accountable to their promises. What I say to you guys right here, right now is turn up the temperature. Turn it up. And tell them we're not going to give up on holding Mitch McConnell accountable. And the time now is to talk to our senators about how you feel about how it is important to make McConnell live up to what he said he was going to do, which is to give us some votes. If they give us the vote, if we get a chance to vote, I believe something will pass. Now, is it going to be what I would write? No. I believe a wall is a total waste of money. But, well, you know, even the people who do border security think, well, really a wall is not what we need. Maybe we need more helicopters, maybe we need more drones, maybe there's other things that we need, but just a big old ugly wall? Did it keep the Mongols out of China? No. So my point is, that's dumb. But here's the thing. The hang up will be this stuff called diversity visa. You know, and there's other things, and you know, that are going to be being discussed. And so we will fight this out, haggle it out. I don't know exactly what the final bill is going to look like. But I do believe that if you are willing to continue to write your emails, write your letters, send your tweets out, make your voice heard, that it will do a lot of good. Because I think, I can't speak for Klobuchar and Smith, but I do believe that they definitely listen to Minnesotans. And if you say, here's what we want, I think they will deliver. And so that's the story on that. But the fight is by no means over. We did get some things we didn't have. They didn't want to give us CHIP for 6 years. They didn't want to do that. They handed it over because they thought, oh, the Democrats cannot vote no on a bill that has a chip in it for 6 years. And said, look, if you try to gangster us, we will vote no. And we did. And then, but we still have that. And now, extra, we got this vote that we are entitled to. What we need to do is just pump it up. And by the way, we should demand that this is a promise made on behalf of Republicans, not just Mitch McCollum. We need to put the pressure on Paul Ryan, excuse me. Tim Ryan's a whole other guy from Ohio. Paul Ryan from Wisconsin, he needs to step up and say he's going to do this vote. So now you have pretty much the lay of the land. That's kind of where we're at this point. On February 8th, no one knows exactly what's going to happen. But I believe that we are going to pump up the volume and demand that we got the vote that we need, not just on the DACA, but also on the rest of the budget too. The rest of the budget. Don't let them off the hook with this. They're trying to make everything all about DACA. And I'm going to tell you why they're doing it. They want to argue Democrats are willing to shut down the government for illegal aliens. What a lie. Totally untrue. But, because first of all, we didn't shut down the government because we are in the minority. We can't shut down the government. Number two is DACA recipients do have a status, which was stripped from them. Right? So, at the end of the day, they're just going to lie. Here's the thing. We need to be getting out there with the truth. We need to say, no, we are under no obligation to vote for things that we disagree with. We've got to have a budget And we've got to have reform of our immigration system. We insist upon these things. And if you want our votes, you've got to put them on the table. If you don't want our votes, then you better have 218 and 60. But we don't vote for stuff just because you say so. I'm not handing my vote. Let me show you on this thing. This is a voting card. You see it? You can look at it. Here, Tab, look at it.
Magnetic.
It is magnetic. And you put it in like a little slot, and then you vote red or green. I'm not handing that card to the Republicans to vote if they choose. I'm handing it to you to have me vote as you choose. You understand what I mean? But if you're just going to let yourself get bullied by the Republicans, then you might as well hand it to them. But I don't think that's how democracy is supposed to work. So that's what's going to happen. So at this time, I'm done talking. I'd love to take notes, and I'd also like to answer any questions you all may have. Oh, you know what? Maybe I should take one more second to just say this. The level of energy out there across America is incredible. I have another job with the Democratic National Committee, and my job is to go all over. Don't worry, I'm home every weekend. I'm seeing constituents. I'm working on Minnesota stuff. But I do take a few days to go around the country. And I've been recently to Connecticut. I've been to Pennsylvania. I've been to North Texas. I've been to Nevada. I've been to Vermont. I've been to, I can't even remember all the places. North Carolina. I'm going to California this coming weekend, New York. And we sit down, we have meetings just like this. Sometimes the group's smaller, sometimes the group's way bigger. That's why I don't get shook about the size of the group. I'm talking about the heart of the folks in the room. Now, you know what I mean? That's what really matters. But I can tell you that all over people are absolutely excited. And I'm not talking about Philadelphia, I'm talking about Allentown. Anybody here ever been to Allentown, Pennsylvania? Now you know, that's like the real Pennsylvania, right? You know, anybody been to New Haven, Connecticut? You know, that's where the rubber hits the road. I'm not talking about LA, I'm talking about Orange County, California. You know, if we win in Orange County, we need 24 seats to take the House back. Between New York and Orange County, that's half of it. Of course, we're counting on one around here too. Wonder. Let me tell you, we're going to have a lot of work on our hands in Minnesota. There was a poll recently that came out, and I want to tell you this: northern Minnesota is trending red. We're going to have a tough time winning in the 8th. We can, we will, but it's not like winning in the 5th congressional district. Well, let me tell you, I bust my tail working hard, but it's not really for myself. It's so that we can. Y'all know there are no statewide Republicans in the state of Minnesota. Not one, not any. But we used to have Pawlenty, we used to have North Colton. When we jack the vote up, when we turn the vote up in the areas where there's a lot of Democrats, that's good for everyone in the state. So we've gone from Franklin and Dayton winning in recounts to winning in blowouts because we don't mess around. We increase the turnout. Not just because we want to win the election, but because we believe that every person in our community deserves to be connected to governance. So I don't care if you vote for me or not. I just want you to know what the issues are. Talk about it. But I do want you to be aware that from the Democratic National Committee standpoint, we have a very aggressive canvassing plan for 2018 all over the country. But don't think for a minute that the DNC is going to win it, because it ain't. You know who's going to win it? The folks all across this country. Indivisible groups, swing left groups, all the women groups. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, I was just on the phone talking about going down to Alabama. Some folks think, oh, we can't win in Alabama. Well, we just won in Alabama. We're going to win some more in Alabama. Because let me tell you something about Alabama. Folks, they get, their average family income is about $11,000 lower than the national average. They're not, on the average working Alabamian is not doing that good. They try to manipulate them with race way more than they do here. But Alabamans are finding out that, look, we're all Americans and we all got to put food on the table, and we better figure out how to work together if we want to see everybody's life get a little bit better. And they're finding that out. You saw how Roy Bush trying to manipulate people and religion, color, all this kind of stuff. People are like, no. What about the budget? What about how we live our lives? What about what the government's going to do to make sure that we can open our businesses, thrive in our jobs, send our kids to college, retire in safety, keep us out of these wars that we don't need to be in? And I say that with my son being active duty military. Trust me, when my son complained to me, Dad, they haven't deployed me yet, I'm like, awesome. You keep your butt right down there and say, Fort Houston, where I know where you're at. But if he has to go serve our country and he has to risk his life, I wanted to make sure that it's for the net, it's to protect our country, not just on some politicians' macho BS. So let's talk. And Jim, you want to help me up here? Or? Yeah, sure. Oh, come on. Let's give Jim Paulsen, everybody. I'm just going to say a quick introduction thing, and what do you guys see going here?
February 20th is the start of session, but there's a lot of things that are happening in the meantime because we have a lieutenant governor who does not want to take her position.
Uh-oh.
And she wants to do two jobs, one in the Senate, one as lieutenant governor, and the Constitution says no. The Constitution also said that the latest elected president of the Senate automatically accedes to the lieutenant governor. And so she has no choice. And what's going to happen probably, and I guess, how many of you know what's happening on February 12th?
Holding a special election.
Yes, special election, February 12th, on the seat in Cottage Grove and Hastings. And that is absolutely critical. It is absolutely critical. And Carla Bingham, who you served with, she is running for the Senate seat, as is Danny McNamara, who you served with. Just one side note, the last thing I heard, I just came from the Capitol, last thing I heard as I was walking to the car with someone was the words that Danny McNamara said, has told some Republicans, even the Republicans are mad at me. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, good.
So we have some very important things that are coming up. But I also want to ask one of the first questions. How are we dealing with the anti-Muslim positioning that's going on? Today, the senator from this district had a meeting in the House, the State Office building with
Rahul.
Yes.
Raheel Raza.
And she's been identified as being part of the
ACTC.
Yeah, and that's been identified as a hate group by the Sex Property Laws. Now, we also have tomorrow is the interfaith group that's meeting, which is people of the Jewish faith, Muslims, and Christians, and that meets right.
Well, that's a good question, and I appreciate you asking. Let me tell you, I've been in Congress now going on 12 years. There has never been a year where my opponents have not spent tremendous energy trying to tell everybody that I was a Muslim. I am a Muslim. And people don't care. They're like, yeah, I'm Methodist, I'm Jewish, or whatever. In America, you get to practice your faith. In America, you can still do that. So, in my opinion, they have not been getting traction on this issue. I mean, people just don't seem to care. You know, as a matter of fact, it's probably gotten me support. Because, like, if they don't like you because you're Muslim, well, then I'm supporting you because I believe in America. Your religion is your business. And do you look right? The first clause of the First Amendment Congress shall make no law establishing a religion or abridge the free exercise thereof. Later on in the document, it says there shall be no religious test for holding public office. And then if you look at the words of Thomas Jefferson, he said all kinds of stuff about freedom of faith. And then even George Washington did too. And then one time, Benjamin Franklin heard that a bunch of people were objecting to what I believe was a Methodist church in Philadelphia. They didn't want a Methodist church. He said, you know what, I'm not Methodist, I'm not even religious, but I'm going to give some money to the building of this church because I believe in freedom of religion. And he said, even if the Mufti of Istanbul were to come here and want to give a speech, he ought to be able to. He said those words. The Mufti of Istanbul is Muslim. So it's important to understand that the United States fought a war of independence over the ability to practice your religion freely. We don't have religious wars like other people do. We got other kind of fights that we have in our country, but we do not fight over religion generally. And that's not to say people don't have prejudices around it. They do. But, you know, they cannot impose their prejudices in law. And we should never allow this. And, you know, but we should have ethical standards. Everybody gets treated with equally. Everybody gets treated as an individual, not a member of a race or a color or a group or a sex or anything. Everybody gets treated as a person. You know, equal access for everybody, equal protection under the law. We should have those laws in place, but those are not the monopoly of any religious group. That's the way we should do it. And as a matter of fact, one of the worst things we can do is follow this religious stuff, where we block it all, because that isn't that what we say the Taliban does? So we're going to be the Christian Taliban in the United States? This is a mistake. As a matter of fact, you have some of the highest religious service attendance in the world in the United States. Did y'all know that? In Europe, they don't go to church like people in the U.S. do. That's a fact. You can look it up. Why? Because it's your choice. Never will a priest, a rabbi, or an imam ever come before the congregation with a sermon written by the government that they're telling you. But there's a lot of countries in this world where that does happen every Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, depending upon the day you go to the worship services. You may not like what the priest has to say, but it's him saying it, right? It's not a government script like you will find in Egypt or other countries of the world. So you're up.
I have a question I'd like to take on to those comments.
Yeah.
About this recently formed commission that I'm a nurse. I'm very concerned about that healthcare workers should be allowed to withhold care or provide services based on their own moral or religious objection. I feel it's a very short-changed, like it's a thinly veiled way to allow nurses and physicians and other folks to withhold abortion services. But I don't know, and I don't know how much money has gone into this and how much traction or if this is actually starting. I'd like to know more about that. I feel like as a nurse, I have seen and questioned the wisdom and the morality of decisions that are being made around me in a neurointensive care unit about keeping people alive when they really should be allowed to pass away with dignity. But I keep that to myself, and I do what my family and my doctors and everyone tells me to do, even though I feel like I'm prolonging someone's suffering and ultimately that a person will die, you know. And I'm wondering if folks who are starting this commission or this committee have thought that through, that you could have folks objecting not only at the beginning of life, but at the end of life, and a lot of times in between, where as caregivers, we give care at your direction, and I don't judge you for that. I do what you want, even though I'm experienced, I've seen this whole story fail dozens of times in my career. People die, but I go forward with your wishes just concerned about that decision to have that committee that will exempt people from providing care.
I think it's unconstitutional. And
What
let
are
me
we
tell
gonna
you,
do about it? Like, where can I go with that as a nurse, and how do
well,
I
the first
get,
thing you need to do about it,
just like very concerned.
I think you should write about it. What if you wrote an op-ed about it and put it in your local community newspaper? Look, if you serve the public, you gotta serve the whole public.
Yep.
You can't say, I'm gonna hold myself out as serving the public, but I'm only gonna serve the straight public, or I'm only gonna serve the white public, or I'm only gonna serve the Catholic public. No, if you're saying, I'm open for business to the public, you gotta serve the whole public. The right to religious freedom is to the person. But if you avail yourself of the marketplace, which is a public institution, you gotta serve the whole public. And it doesn't make any sense to do it any other way. You're probably thinking about this cake case, right? Where these guys don't wanna, where there's a guy.
No, there's a new division in justice.
Say again?
There's a new division in justice.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
a new committee, and it's like, apparently, I mean, the way I'm reading it, just based on news reports, is I think it's really targeted at abortion providers. I'm just saying, I am extrapolating it to, like, if I'm in a neural ICU where I work, and I see like I have over my whole career, a lot of hopeless cases, where I feel like I'm providing almost more harm to someone, but the family isn't ready to let their loved one go. If I withhold that because I think it's morally wrong, my employer apparently can't fire me or do anything to me, but this is gonna create so much chaos in a hospital where maybe a doctor wants to provide care and I don't want to, because I think it's wrong to make people who have, you know, a terminal brain tumor suffer. I don't understand what kind of moral that has, but I think really this committee started so that if I don't want to help a doctor do an abortion, I don't have to.
Well, that might
I'm
be,
very concerned about them messing in with my commitment as a nurse, a doctor's commitment to their practice. I don't understand
well,
this.
let me tell you, that might, the thing about abortion rights could certainly have something to do with it. It probably has a lot to do with it, but what it really has to do with is that the people who are in control of this government need numbers to be in control. And where they get their numbers? From mostly Christian evangelicals.
Yep.
So if you're not gonna help them, if you're not cutting the Christian evangelicals in, conservatives in with the tax cut, because most of them don't make enough money to benefit from it, how are you gonna cut them in? You're gonna, by using this issue. So it is what they're doing for the non-rich supporters of their party. But at the end of the day, you know, you have a lot of people who for them, you know, it is about the social issues. And Trump and Sessions have to do something to make them happy. So this is part of it. But you see, before Pence got to the vice presidency, he was in a world of trouble over this in Indiana, right? And so my opinion is, yes, they can set up a commission. We should say it's unconstitutional. But what we really need to do is remind people, I mean, how come over the whole course of the Constitution, the whole history of the Constitution, this was never some blazing problem. Now all of a sudden, they with this Hobby Lobby case, you know, the owner of the company doesn't like contraception, so nobody who works there can do contraception on their health care plan. That's ridiculous. It is to the individual, not to the company, not to the cake. I mean, the guy on the gay thing with the cake thing,
Yes.
I'm like, look, if you don't want to serve gay people, then have an exclusive private company that does not serve the public and does not sell across state lines. Because if you are involved in interstate commerce, or if you are holding yourself out to the public, then you've got to serve the whole public. And to me, it's not complicated. But, you know, they accuse people in other parts of the world of trying to, trying to be theocracies. This is them trying to push theocracy on us. When
Could the ACLU be used for that?
yeah, they are.
Because the ACLU could, take it to court.
They're on it.
And it is, I'm a proud member.
They're already confronting this issue. I talked to them about this last week. They're gonna, they're on top of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have an answer for one of your questions. So you were talking about birth to death, and the dying with dignity is something that we have been looking at in the Senate. And I was confronted right up the street here at Mary Mother Church one night when they asked, "Are you for assisted suicide?" And I said, "Well, if you're talking about death with dignity, I have to tell you how I look at this. I'm old enough to look at the obituaries every morning. And what I see is went to live with Jesus, went to his heavenly reward, went to a better place. All of these things that most religions have been teaching us since we were little kids, that there's some reward in the future. Now you're telling me you want me to interfere with that passing? I don't want to do that. I don't want to interfere with that passing where somebody is going to a better place. So we need to think about it a different way."
Interesting. Yeah. Let's have more folks talk. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Renita Fisher. I live here in Burnsville.
All right.
And I just announced on January 1st that I'm moving from just being an activist to running for office. I've been trying to talk to Jason for over a year, ever since he got elected, so I'm glad to see he's here somehow. I've been trying to talk to him because I'm an immigrant.
From where?
From Guyana.
Oh,
I became
Guyana.
Yes.
I've been to Guyana.
You've been to Guyana.
Georgetown.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of focus on DACA, and I think personally for me, having immigrated here, and I dislike very much the term chain migration. And what
It's
it
really
is.
an awful term.
It is an ugly term. I know what it's like to live in the United States and be away from my family. My extended family live in Guyana still.
Yep.
I've still got my dad, my brothers and my sisters, they're back home. My grandparents immigrated here, so did my aunt. She brought the rest of the family here. We all started off from the very bottom. They left great jobs back in Guyana, but they knew they wanted to offer a better life to their kids. And
Were they from Buxton?
They were from Georgetown. We came here, we worked from the bottom up. And we're now doctors and teachers in the family and managers, and I myself became an AVP. My concern is, I think DACA is so important, and I really want you to fight for it, but I also believe it's important to not trade away the rights that we should have in being able to reunite families. I am very, very concerned that we lose that. Families who are here who can't bring grandparents, who live in impoverished countries, that need health care, that we who've been here for years have been paying in and have to prove and jump through hoops that we can provide for families. The benefits that we bring here and what we invest here far outweighs anything that we ever take away, which we rarely ever do. How much are you going to fight and push to fight to make sure that we don't lose the right to bring our families here?
Fight tooth and nail.
Okay.
I mean, I definitely believe in that,
What's your sense on that?
So-
Do you think that that's on the part of the negotiations, or?
Yeah, they're trying to, they renamed it.
I know, family migration.
Well, it used to be
Chain
called,
Chain
the
migration.
chain immigration, the real name of it is family reunification.
Okay.
And that's what it's supposed to be called. And then also they want to end the diversity visa program.
Yes.
So what's the thing? So here's, I'm going to tell y'all the real dirty in this whole thing. There's some people in the White House who don't accept the fact that the United States has people from various places in the world. And there's some people in the White House who believe that only people who have very light skin should be able to come to the United States. It's not me making this up. The president said, why are these people coming here from shithole countries? We need more people from Norway.
I'm from that, one of those asshole countries. And
Well, let me just tell you
I'm
this.
saying.
Well, let me tell you this. I met with Norwegian folks. Look, I've been in Oslo 3 or 4 times. They don't feel that way. You know what they'll say? And maybe some of you are. They'll say this: Norway was the poorest country in Europe 100 years ago. We remember when we were the shithole country. We're not about to start calling, saying other people can't come. I mean, look, but it's not everybody. It is him, and it is a few others in there, like Stephen Miller, like Sebastian Gorka, who's not there anymore, but still, it's people like Kelly. It's not everybody, but that mindset is there, and so yeah, we're gonna say that we believe in the United States as a country that is made great by many kinds of folk. Can I introduce Angela Craig, right? Let me just tell you, Angie Craig is providing lost keys to She's a full service, she runs the gamut. Good to see you, Angie. Good to be here. I told you about the Progressive Caucus thing, right?
Yes, you did, sir.
All right. Yep.
Okay, comment for my question. I actually majored in Chinese, so the Great Wall of China, before Westerners made it the symbol of China, was actually in Chinese considered a symbol of bureaucratic ineptitude. So, on to my, I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, thank you.
So I actually volunteer doing taxes for lower income individuals, including undocumented. And it's, I don't know if you're familiar with VITA, with the IRS.
Yeah.
Okay, because I've seen the last few years that I've been doing this, I've been seeing very much a trickle cutting. The organization I volunteer with, called Prepare and Prosper, used to
Great group. That's Tracy Fishman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they used to have IRS agents have office hours at their location because and then a lot of people who had tax issues, they actually had time, got cut because of budgets.
Yep.
They had to change the program they use. So I'm just wondering, and I think taxes does not get the attention it deserves to social justice issue. But ultimately, it is a program there for people who need help paying taxes and don't have the money to pay someone else to do it for them. And these are people for whom getting a $2,000 tax refund is going to be life-changing for them. I have done taxes for undocumented people who have kids or supporting their families in Mexico and are donating money to their church and are making the money I made when I was in college. And I can understand how they can do this. So for them getting that extra couple of grand, it's really very much a lifesaver.
So, absolutely. So let me just go back to the big picture again. If the government's not collecting revenue, then it can't spend any revenue. If it can't spend any revenue, then it can't have programs that hold people and companies accountable. See what I'm saying?
Right.
So let's just say I own a oil refinery. And let's just say my oil refinery makes pollution. I don't want there to be an EPA that's going to call me up and say, you got to clean that up. Because it's going to cost me money, and I don't like people telling me what to do. So from my standpoint, I'm trying to reduce the amount of money the government has so that it doesn't have the money to pay people to tell me to clean up my acts. Right? That is what this is about. Does it hurt the people who need help with their taxes? Of course. Does it hurt the people with Meals on Wheels? Of course. But remember, folks, in the history of all humanity, from the moment where all human history, we've had warlords, kings, earls, dukes, we've had queens, we've had all types of folks who had a lot of power, and they ruled through force, military force, and ownership of the land. Democracy comes in and says, wait a minute, It's not the Duke and the Earl and the King and the Queen who's gonna run everything. It's the regular folks who are gonna select who they want to lead them for a time, and then them folks gotta go after a little bit, after a while. This has flipped the table on everybody. And it didn't start out as just the kings to the people. It started out as the kings, then it was all the people, then the Magna Carta says, okay, all of us got a lot of juice here, Mr. King, so they know about you. And then the circle of decision-making widened until we have modern democracy. There are people who feel that this is encumbering their ability to do what they want to do. They don't want any accountability. They don't want the public telling them what to do. They don't see why there needs to. If there's a publicly owned park over there and it has some stuff under it that I don't want the public to tell me I can't just dig it up and sell it to people. This is the problem we have. Democracy and what some people want to do is clashing. And the question is, are we going to stand up for our democracy or not? Trickle down means give all the people at the top the money and they decide how to distribute it, if they decide to distribute it. But did you all see this story in the paper just yesterday? In 2017, last year, about 82% of all the new wealth went to the top 1%. Now, as you all heard me say before, there's a lot of wealthy people who don't like that. They believe, hey, I climbed the ladder, I want other people to climb the ladder too. Don't think it's all rich people. It isn't. But there is a group of people who really believe that, and they're driving that agenda. And we have to decide.
How are you going to deal with big money in politics?
So when you say, how are you going to get rid of it? I'm telling you that there's no way for me to get rid of it. There's only a way for us to get rid of it. It is, I swear to you, if I could get rid of it, I would get rid of it. But what we have to do
You
is...
can get rid of it when you're in power.
Okay, so let me tell you this. You've got to have 218 people in Congress to pass anything. Then you've got to have 60 in the Senate, and then you've got to have a president who will sign the bill. At the end of the day, we've got to get a majority so that we can get money out of politics.
Is that on the GFL agenda?
Of course it is, absolutely. Well, I mean, but here's the thing. Our biggest problem, ma'am, is cynicism. The idea they won't, they can't, they never. It's so easy to do that. It's a little harder to go engage your neighbor, to go win an election. We got some awesome people running for Congress right here in the 6th Congressional District. Second, sorry, forgive me for that. And if we got them in, that would be one more towards getting money out of politics. But if all we do is say, I don't believe anything about anyone about anything and I'm not gonna, then that is great for the people who are in power because that's we give up. Not voting is not a protest, it is surrender. It is giving up. And so, yeah, of course, getting money out of politics is totally in. It's in the DNC platform. It's in the DFL platform. It is. We passed get money out legislation when we were in the minority, but we couldn't get it through the Senate. But if we get it back, we're going to do extra drive, but we're going to do it together. There is no individual who's going to wave a wand and fix all our problems. It is us. Yes.
Well, what's the DNC going to do? I mean, you're part of the DNC.
Yeah.
What's the DNC going to do to get these people out, these Republicans out, more Democrats in?
I will answer that, but so can I go right back to you afterwards? Ma'am, I'm sorry.
I'm going to take full advantage of your invitation to listen.
Yeah.
To talk.
Yeah.
First of all, just a quick note for the room. I believe the next vote on the budget, we will be coming up on 6 months past the deadline that we were supposed to have a budget passed.
Yep.
Call Jason and say, you've had 6 months past your deadline. We knew the deadline was coming. We're past 6 months of that deadline of our government not having a budget to get it passed. 2, as someone who lives on the rural side of this district, I heard you on This American Life.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I read the Bustos report.
Good.
And one of the, and look, I live in a part of Minnesota where the rural disaffected Democrats, I live among them. And so one of the challenges that we have, and certainly one of the challenges I want to put out to this group, is this idea of trying to really wrestle with the idea of what we consider diversity.
Right, right.
Diversity in the form of keeping Ellison, really easy. There's a diversity that I think the Democrats are missing as a party. I see it, we're missing it here in the state party. The idea that you could be a person of faith and a Democrat. The idea that you could be a quote unquote white person who has spent a lot of time around people of color and communities of color, but you can't really represent people of color because you're white. So one of the things that I think we need to try and wrestle with as a party is learning to recognize diversity of experience.
Yeah.
And that's also a valuable way of expanding the base for our party and bringing in disaffected Democrats. Not just rural Democrats. There's plenty of disaffected urban Democrats. So it's not necessarily an urban-rural divide. There's a lot of reasons why people are not satisfied with the party. And I think one of the reasons is because as a party it's too easy, right, to say, oh, we're gonna have a black person, we're gonna have an Asian person, we're gonna have someone from the LGBT community. We have all these easily identifiable demographics of diversity. But we have glossed over the wealth that is diversity of experience.
You want to touch on this, Jim?
Well, being one of the older people in the room, I do like that diversity of experience. I was the only engineer in the Senate for a few years. So, and it made a big difference. Now, bringing in other people who have had experience as being a high school principal, like Erik Paulsen from Rosemount, bringing in some other people that might be attorneys, like Carrie Dietz from North Minneapolis. Those people are extremely valuable to have a diversity of opinion when we're looking at lawmaking. Now, I guess I'd like to circle back a little bit. The problem of cynicism is a big problem. We have the ability to get involved, and I do reject that we don't listen, because I do listen. My office is open. I put on my literature, my home phone numbers on there, my office phone numbers on there, and so I'm ready to listen, and I do listen. And then also working on diversity. Congressman Ellison and I are on the same board of directors for the Minnesota Muslim Caucus, and I'm not Muslim, but and they invited me on because I have some thoughts that they would like to share, and I'm sharing all of the time. And so we need to look at our neighbors and friends and value what they do know, whether it's ethnicity, whether it's your careers, whether it's just thoughts. That's extremely important. Now, there's only 67 senators in Minnesota, so we might not be able to accommodate everyone, but we do need to reach out and try as much as possible. And I think, we'll go back a little bit more, and that is that the majority. You do not pass anything without a majority vote. And that is so critical at every level of government, elected government, from the bottom right to the top. And so that's really important. Sometimes, now, you may not agree 100% with someone. I've been married for 40.
That's not here.
My wife isn't here, but I've been married for 47 years. And so, she and I do not agree on everything. We don't agree on everything. But you know what? She's probably the best person for me to bounce things off of and get my response. So if you're insisting that someone do exactly what you want 100% of the time, you're not going to find that person. You have to vote for yourself, because that's the only person that qualifies.
Even then?
Yeah.
Even then?
Then you can't change your mind. Yes.
Yeah. We're at 7:30. let's take, who all has something else they want to say? Let's,
Remember back here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's take all 6 of y'all, and then we'll respond seriatim. And I think you were concerned. So I'd like to answer your question, and then we'll do the 6. Did everybody know the number? Everybody remembers their count? Now, we did tell you we were going to leave at 7:30. It is 7:30. So let's try to do this orderly, quickly, and then we'll dismiss. What is the DNC doing? The DNC doesn't, first, let me tell you this. When you say Democratic Party, there's really no such thing. There's actually the Democratic parties. What do I mean by that? Well, there's 50 different Democratic parties if you talk about state parties. But even then, you talk about the Democratic governors, the Democratic Congress, Democratic House, Democratic Senate, Democratic Secretaries of State. And then you have something called the Democratic National Committee. Well, the Democratic National Committee does not go to the House Dems and say, do this. So somebody said, why did the Democratic senators cave in and you people, I don't believe in you, you're no good. I'm like, the DNC does not go tell Senator Manchin what to do. We cannot. It is impossible. He can tell us to all jump in the lake. He holds an election certificate and he votes for West Virginia, and that is just the way that it is. Same with Claire McCaskill, same with Amy Klobuchar, same with Keith Ellison. The party cannot tell the member what to do. So when citizens feel like, oh, the Democratic Party, oh, I'm so frustrated, I hate you guys. Well, you don't say that, but you say, we're mad at you guys. You're often blaming the Democratic Party for things that we absolutely have no control over. No control over. And it's just as if somebody was mad at Bernie and then blame our revolution. Bernie doesn't have to do what our revolution says. The people of Vermont elect him. That is who he's accountable to. And no organization can make it vote a certain way. Now, you can vote against him if you want to, and you live in Vermont. But it's, you understand what I'm saying here?
Like, you're never really addressing the question I intended to ask.
Okay.
Under Howard Dean, the DNC had a 50-state strategy, and it was dropped the minute that he left.
We have a better than 50-state strategy now.
And what is that? That's
It's
kind of
called,
what I was
it's called
wondering.
Every Zip Code Counts. The organization, one of the organizations within the DNC is something called the Association of State Party Chairs, the ASDC. And every chair and vice chair of every single state party is a member of this group. So that means there's like 114 of them because you've got to count the territories. There's a Democratic Party of Puerto Rico, Mariana Islands, the Virgin Islands, Guam, all that, we can name it. And so they've come up with a program where they do now give, at this moment, $10,000 per month to help all their state party efforts. Now, California doesn't, they get their money, but they don't survive on it. They got plenty of other money. But Alabama needs that money or they don't have a party. So it kind of works that way. And under Howard Dean, the 50-state strategy really did work. Let me just tell you, Howard Dean, under Howard Dean, he lost that presidential run in 2004. He became state party chair in 2004. In 2006, we take the majority. 2008, President Obama wins. What happens in 2008? Very, very important. Obama encounters the same kind of thing that Bernie encountered when he started running for president. And so, what Obama did is said, instead of relying on the DNC, I'm going to open up something called the Organizing for America, Obama for America, OFA. So then he opens up all this vast network all over the country that then propels him to victory in 2008 and 2012. As this is happening, money and resources and volunteers are being diverted from the DNC, where I'm the deputy chair, into OFA, and OFA is doing what it does, but the DNC essentially becomes a pass-through right? And honestly, a lot of good people work there, but the level of energy wasn't there. And the DNC chair, you know, is there because the president says, but the job of the DNC chair is really not to, you know, the president of the party in power runs the DNC. But the president had his own organization, OFA. So the DNC sort of with it. So what I believe is that given the investments that we're making now from the DNC to all the state parties, given how we're prioritizing canvassing, given how we're focusing on working with groups that are not part of the Democratic Party, but share the similar values, like Flip a District, Indivisible, all the groups out there that believe in health care for everybody and all the things that we all care about. Because we're building that unity, and we really are, that's what I've been doing all over the country. I believe we are on the right foot. We're going in the right direction. I believe that we're gonna win big this fall if we all get out there and work. But I'm gonna even tell you this, I don't think it's because of DNC. If we win, it ain't gonna be because of DNC. If we win, it's gonna be because people on the local level get out there and work hard. It's gonna be because of the grassroots organization. Let me just say this. Since 2008, we have lost over 1,000 state legislative seats, which has hurt people like Jim, who's trying to pass good legislation. But if we're not winning, then he can't. And most of the real legislation is at the state level. So let me just say this to you. The DNC is getting its act together. We have won now we have flipped 34 seats red to blue in state legislatures. We're winning specials in deep red districts. We won in deep red districts in Oklahoma. We just won the other day in Wisconsin. That's a red district, man. So we're on the comeback trail, but we lost over 1,000 seats. This is the best time in the world to come back on the comeback trail, because at the end of this term, we're gonna be right in front of redistricting again. Again. And if we come up big in 2018 and make it all back, then we don't need to do a cheater map the way they do. We just need a fair map. And we're gonna win. And so I'm telling you that this is a great time to get involved. This party used to be run from the bottom up, now the top down. Neither Tom Perez, my friend, or me are gonna organize America. It is the activists, the people who will come out, what's tonight, Wednesday night? Who are willing to come out on a cold Wednesday night, you know, in Burnsville, that are gonna organize the state of Minnesota and the 2nd Congressional District. So I thank you for your question, and let me tell you guys, anybody who's like a little bit not sure about whether the Democratic Party is ready to rock or not, I'm telling you that your friend Keith Ellison from your state is working there every day. We're doing everything I can to make the Democratic Party a grassroots party, a values-based party, where we're not just trying to win elections, we're trying to win a good set of policies to help Americans. And we're not, the Democratic Party's not even for Democrats. It's for the American people. It is for making everyone's lives better. That's what it's for. Now, we come together and we work on it. So I say that to you. Now, I've talked way longer than I meant to. Let's get to our 6, and then we'll wrap up. I don't know who was first. Yep.
I'd just like to say to Mr. Paulsen and Mr. Ellison that, you know, I think it's time that we start to look at the idea that, you know, when we listen to polls, they say that we're not very popular as congressmen, and we're just not. And we're not resonating with the American people. And I think that you're right. I think grassroots is going to make it happen. But I also think that when our leadership talks, they need to talk to us, not to each other. And I know it's a very hard job to do, and when I take it off, you'll know why, but I'm wearing a hat. And I take my hat off to you, because I know it's very hard what you do, very hard. And I thank you for doing it. I thank you for wanting to run in the NG2, because those are the things that make the difference in us being the great country we are. An example of what I'm talking about, though, if you want to talk to people, you can say, all right, you want to talk, Scott, and it's going to be great for all of you. And our corporations are gonna get this great job creation package of money, 35 or whatever, it was 21, whatever it was. Okay, and we're also gonna say to these people, all right, you got a corporation, you got this money that you get that tax cut if you show that you have created these jobs and you've made salaries for real working Americans better. You are accountable for your tax cut, just like we are when we do our tax returns. It's the same. When you talk to American people that way, they understand you're on their side. Let's vote for you. And I may be in the wrong room, but Representative Ellison, I did vote for you.
Well, thanks a lot. And what if we said, you want a tax cut, show us the jobs, and then we'll cut you the check back.
I don't like it. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's it. I like that idea. Who was number 2? Yep, I think you were 2.
Yeah. Sorry. So, thank you for being here tonight, Congressman. A few weeks ago, you posted a picture on Twitter of yourself holding an anti-fascist Antifa handbook. The Department of Homeland Security and the Federal Bureau of Investigation have labeled that as a domestic terror organization, a domestic terror threat. And I want to know if you think that that is the proper thing for a member of Congress and the Deputy Chair of the DNC reposting on Twitter, and that kind of violent behavior to be encouraged.
Thank you. I'll answer your question at the due time. Yep.
I have a question. You know, we've been in Afghanistan 16 years, and when are we going to have a discussion about what is our end game? I mean, the president says we want to have 1,000 troops, more troops or advisors over. It just goes. It doesn't seem that we ever have a discussion, and I don't know, as far as you as a congressman, you know, where is your, as the Congress, the power to say to the president, we got to have a discussion on this? I know there's the War Powers Act, but it seems like, you know, the American people, that we're not represented at all in this discussion. We just need 1,000 more. A couple generals say we need this, we need that.
I'm with you, man. Afghanistan. I got it right here.
I mean, where is it going to end? I mean, I've been at 16 years. I mean, I was 48 when it started. I'll be 64 here pretty soon. It's still going on. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And that's my question. Is just when are we going to have a discussion?
I got it right here. I got it. Number 4. Yes, ma'am.
I have another concern I just wanted to raise, which was the rollback of all the environmental regulations, and especially the ones that once we roll them back and there's policies made that we won't be able to reverse. I think it's going to be tragic for Minnesota if we have mining up north, sulfate mining, and permits been approved, and I'm not sure, you know, I don't hear any discussion of the environment in you know, or much discussion anyway in the news.
Okay, good question. Mining, environment.
And that's especially important for Minnesota. We've always had really high standards, and we're rolling them back at this point.
Thank you. I think so numbers, I think that we had 6 people who had a question. Yep.
Well, I would like to thank you for your service and for being here.
Thank you.
It's really, really wonderful that you'll take the time to do this, so we appreciate that. Two things is I was very disappointed in the DNC and the superdelegates and the process that we went through, because I supported Bernie Sanders, I supported Hillary, but there really was a lot of trust lost in that whole process because of that, and because Bernie wasn't supported more than he should have been. I mean, there were things that shouldn't have happened. So I would like to know what the DNC is doing about that. The second thing is we need to get money out of politics. If anybody hasn't seen, there's a video called Larry Lessig. He's a Harvard law professor. And if we don't get money out of politics, we're not going to get the nominees that we choose, and we're not going to get what we need to get done. And it just has to happen. A very small percentage of money interests are choosing our nominees for us. And the third thing I'd like to say to you is my daughter's in Salt Lake City, and we travel through western states. And I'm wondering what the DNC does about messaging other than grassroots. There is no NPR there. They listen to hateful radio.
that's what they're surrounded by. And so how is the DNC addressing that message? Because that's a really important part of the puzzle for them.
You're totally
Getting
right.
the message to them other than grassroots is you need to get the larger message to them.
Well, thank you. So I got 7 folks, so we're gonna answer, oh, you were up.
That was number 6.
All right.
So just 2 quick things. First of all, to your question about what do the Democrats do about getting money out, and what. I wanted to say one other thing about that, which is that for me personally, if you had an Angie Craig or a Jeff Bergman sitting in that chair over there, and you called their office as a Democratic voter, there would be more weight behind your words. So if something like this had actually come up for a vote, or they were pushing to get it to the floor, we would actually have some ability to talk to somebody who gave a crap about it. Not necessarily that they're going to do everything that we want perfectly, but you wouldn't be treated the same way as you're treated by that office today, and that would be a step forward. So I just wanted to mention that. And the second thing I wanted to just ask Keith, with regards to the DNC, one of the things that concerns me the most about we have the blue wave, we have the momentum, and I think that's all great. I'm really concerned about voter suppression and about people who want to vote and can't. And it seems like there are policies like this all over the country. And do you guys have any ideas? Or are you doing anything to, no matter how high the walls are, get these people registered anyway? What does that process look like?
Yeah, thank you. So let me start here, and then we'll work back. We have a whole unit that works on voter suppression and protecting the vote. And so right now, we're going to the most acute places. As you know, it used to be that we had something called the Voting Rights Act, we still have it, but they gutted a key portion of it. So now, it used to be that if you were a state that had a history of stopping people from their right for the vote, you would have to call the federal government and pre-clear what you wanted to do. Now there's no pre-clearance in effect, so they just do all kinds of stuff to undermine people's vote. So we're working with communities and state parties to give people what they need. But at the end of the day, here's one thing that we know. You can give people an ID, but this ain't about an ID. So then they'll come up with some other tricky little game to try to deny people their right to vote. We need to get rid of these photo ID laws, get rid of these laws that simply are in the way of having people participate in elections. We also need to fight for some things, like making election day a holiday, promoting early vote, getting rid of felon disenfranchisement. I mean, in Maine and Vermont, you never lose your right to vote. And in places like Florida, you lose your right to vote for life. So this is a big deal, thing we're quite concerned about. We have a group of lawyers that work on these issues. But let me tell you, it is a very serious concern, particularly when you lose a presidential election by about 70,000 votes. As you know, we won by 3 million votes, but in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, we lost by about 70,000 votes. And as a result, we got what we got.
There was some hinky things going on in Wisconsin. I was over there at that time, and there was in the paper one county right afterwards that was reported 3 districts that had more votes than voters that were reported in a strict voter ID state.
Well,
So
you get over 200,000 people who were eligible to vote who didn't vote in Milwaukee alone. So, Rural Commission, let me tell you this. One of the things as Democrats, progressives, liberals, that we have got to do is understand it's not only the quality of message, it's the quantity of message. And that means that when your family is rolling through rural parts of this country, we have got to get the message to people. So one of the things that we're doing is we're putting a lot of time, energy, resource into greater levels of communication. But until we get what we got to get, we need you to take up the mantle. So, anybody ever see that movie, Dunkirk?
Yep.
Yeah. So they didn't have enough votes to get the British soldiers from Dunkirk to the British Isles. So they asked people to get their own personal votes to get the people off. We need you to do that. The Democrats need a Dunkirk moment where you get you do your own radio program, you write your own op-ed, you write your own tweets to get the message out. And in the meantime, we'll build greater institutional power. More messaging, absolutely. Superdelegates, you know, we cut them down by 2/3, right? Superdelegates are cut 2/3. So so members of office holders are still unbound. There really is no such thing as a superdelegate. That's a term we use. Kind of like when Trump says no collusion, that's not a legal term. Conspiracy is a legal term, which there's a lot of evidence that he conspired with Russia to undermine our election. There's evidence to show that. Several people have pled guilty toward that. But collusion is a non-legal term. Neither is superdelegate a legal term. What it really is pledged or unpledged. So before, you could be an unpledged delegate, but then pledge to whoever you wanted. Now we're saying that if you are you're a delegate who is in some sort of a status, you no longer can be unpledged. You will be pledged by whoever wins your state. Or there will be, so like they said it goes 60-40. 40 will be from this one, 60 will be from that one, but there's no more free agency. You have to follow your state. Like Colin Peterson was a Bernie delegate. You know why? Because he said whoever wins the 7th district, that's who I'm supporting. That'll be the norm. Jim, you jump in here whenever you want. Now we're up to the mining environmental thing. You want to touch that?
Well, yeah, they're in fact, the Minnesota Conservation, MCEA, if you can remember that. They have a meeting tomorrow morning on the permits that were just issued. And they're going to provide some information for people so that they can properly comment on these permits, because there is a comment period that's happening. And you know, this has been something that I've been involved in a long time. As yet, I believe I'm the only legislator that's ever gotten a bill hearing on this requirement for fiscal assurance for the mining companies. And that happened in 2010. And I had to pull the bill because we had too many Democrats that were on the committee, and if we would have forced them to take a vote, they would have lost in the next election. Some of them did anyway, but it was one of the things that I went to a reporter afterward, and he said, "How come you did that?" And I said, "Well, I pulled the bill because we were going to be forcing people to take a bad vote." And actually, if you look at the calendar and go ahead a year, you'll see that nothing has changed. That was in 2010, and not a lot has changed. The biggest discussion we're having today is financial assurance. And the mining companies have said, if you require this financial assurance, what you're doing is you're making this uneconomical. Okay, well, it seems to me, if you can't afford to clean up after yourself, don't do it in the first place.
Yay!
That's where I'm at. Yeah. Now, I have to say that, like this, but I am an engineer. And engineers can solve big problems. They can solve big problems. Mm-hmm. So this could be potentially solved, but let's prove it first. So that's where I'm at, prove it first. But I do want to talk about the voter suppression. We really dodged the bullet in the last session.
Yeah.
Mary Kiffmeyer is the Senate chair of the ALEC contingent in the Senate, Minnesota Senate. And I'm on that committee, I'm the ranking member. And she put forth a bill that would force provisional ballots for people, and there's a certain flag that's on all registration lists. You don't know that, and in fact, no one can know that. It's confidential information. But what she wanted to do was make all of those people have to do a provisional ballot. And at first she said, if you vote with a provisional ballot, you have to go to your county and prove yourself that you are eligible to vote. Even though most of these people are certainly eligible to vote, probably all of them. Well, there was a pushback on that. She downplayed it a little bit and said that it's going to be up to the county to go into the databases and prove that you are eligible to vote. Well, thankfully, she made a big screw up where she didn't put in the cost of doing that into the bill. It's called a fiscal note. And the counties all came back and said, this is going to cost us big money, $15, $20, $25. Where's the money? and she didn't have the money. So that actually got deleted at the last minute. Now, that's a good thing. But what happened after that is the President Trump's election commission wanted all of the secretaries of state to turn over all of the records. And it took a little while, but I believe it was somewhere right around in the high 40s of the states that refused, and our state was one of them. Secretary Simon said, absolutely not, I'm not turning that over. And he actually was one of the people that, if you look at the whole country, that saved us from that issue. And what they were going to do was set up a national database and pick and choose people who they were going to force the states to take off their voter rolls like they did in Florida in 2000. So I said, well, my name's Jim Carlson. There's a lot of people that are named Jim Carlson. There's two of them right here within a mile. But there's also another one, another Jim Carlson that I don't want to be mixed up with. He's the guy that he ran for president in 2012. And he was also the guy that owned that head shop up in Duluth. That's Jim Carlson. I don't want to be mixed up with him. And Mary Kiffmeyer, this was in a Senate hearing. Mary Kiffmeyer said, well, don't worry about that because it'll have your Social Security number with it. And I said, well, you know that Social Security numbers were not required to register to vote for many, many years. So it's not in the database, nor is your birthday in the database. So you still can mix up that Jim Carlson with this Jim Carlson, except that he's in the penitentiary. So we have to really have a care about that suppression, and it requires us to take a look at all the bills that are coming up. And I want to go back again. We are a one-vote minority in the Senate, and we have I think it's a 14-vote minority in the House. And we have a Democratic governor. We have to replace, either flip the House because the Senate is not up for election, and keep the Democratic governor because the next time redistricting comes around, this will be the first time that Minnesota will be under the possible gerrymandering. And they will change this, and we will not get those offices back after that because they will gerrymander. So it's really important if you hate gerrymandering, we never had to worry about that because we always had a House and a Senate and a governor that were of different parties, and somebody would stop it and would go to the courts. Well, if we have a House and a Senate and a governor of one party, they're going to gerrymander. So have a care, please.
Have a care.
We're
So,
going to elect a Democratic governor.
yes, we are.
Yes.
So Afghanistan-wise, you'll be happy to know that there is a bipartisan group that talks about Afghanistan quite a bit. We're as outraged as you are. Here's the thing about Afghanistan. It makes sense for the United States to say that if somebody who wants to attack the United States is gathering up in Afghanistan, I think that we have the right to be concerned about that. But for us to go back and try to fix Afghanistan when it's not a continuing threat to us means that we should not have a huge military presence there. I mean, I'm for giving folks foreign aid to try to help their country be better. I'm not against foreign aid like some folks are, Republicans usually. But I don't think that our military needs to be all over Afghanistan because at the end of the day, nobody is going to fix Afghanistan other than the people of Afghanistan. And we need to support them, root for them, but having Marines standing all over Afghanistan is not going to solve the problem. We have put so much money into training in Afghanistan. I mean, at some point, they're either going to be trained or they're not going to be trained. So I think our only legitimate military interest in Afghanistan is in preventing a gathering threat. And beyond that, we don't need to be there into the future the way we have been. I mean, it doesn't it's not right. But I can tell you there's people on both sides of the aisle who agree. And Barbara Lee has put forward amendments that have really gotten a lot of backing from folks who are both Democrats and I'll give you credit to the Republicans who agreed with that. So that is going on. And I want you to know, and then on the other thing, the young man asked me about this book. Let me tell you, I was touring small businesses coffee shop, bookstore, saw the book. I never heard it until I heard Trump say it. I thought it was funny, so I put it on, I displayed a picture of it and said, this is what Trump's afraid of. I never read the book. From what I've learned recently, it's a history book. So I haven't endorsed it, anything like that. This is Republicans making a big deal out of nothing, which is what they do. This is Benghazi, this is that. So, enough with that. Hey guys, that's all we have time for tonight. Thank you very much.